The White Lotus was created by Mike White. The general theme of the series is what dangers arise when our primary instincts take over. The focus of the first season can be summarized as, if we cannot govern our primal urges, they drive us to a downfall. The second season has two main focuses. The first, if we follow our primal urges, we may become prey to hunting predators. The second season takes place in the small town of Taormina on the eastern coast of Sicily, near Mount Etna. Similar to the first season, we follow the vacation of three groups of guests. The heiress from the first season and Greg, who are now married. She is accompanied by her personal assistant Portia. The grandfather, father and son of Sicilian descent who came to visit their ancestors' land, hoping to find distant relatives. Two married couples. The scheming investment manager Cameron and his wife Daphne. Ethan, who recently became wealthy from selling his tech company, and his partner Harper. Also, we should consider on this side the hotel's strict manager Valentina. From the neighborhood, there is the local professional, the prostitute Lucia, and her friend Mia, who are also main characters. As well as Greg's friend, the mysterious wealthy gay British expat, Quentin, and his nephew. In the first season, there is an interesting scene when the manager, while partying, promises favors to one of the hotel's staff members.
You said I could pick my own shifts. You said a bunch of shit.
I forget what I said.
Well, I didn't. You owe me.
The idea is already raised here. If we are slaves to our instincts, we behave in a more predictable way and thus become prey to predators waiting for the opportunity who can exploit this human weakness. The previous scene still seems fundamentally innocent. However, the question also arises whether Greg is exploiting the heiress. Greg, who is dying, primarily seeks the woman's company only for the evenings, only for some fun. However, the first season doesn't explore their relationship further. In the second season, there is a case where exploitation can happen even unintentionally. Valentina is attracted to the always smiling concierge, whose basic nature is actually superficial kindness, which she really needs to endure the behavior of wealthy guests. Valentina misinterprets the concierge's kindness, sees it as a sign of possible relationship, and gives her a piece of jewelry. The professional of exploitation is Lucia, the prostitute, and she wants to involve her friend Mia in this as well. Mia wants to be a singer. The middle-aged singer and pianist Giuseppe wants to exploit Mia's situation. However, this backfires, and actually Mia is able to exploit him. Mia later sleeps with Valentina and in exchange becomes the hotel's singer. Lucia arrives at the hotel with her friend with the intention of making as much money as possible. Together, they party with the two husbands who are left alone one evening. At the beginning, Lucia came to the father, who admits that he's a sex addict.
I have a problem with sexual addiction and compulsion. It's a real issue, and I really need to get a handle on it, like quickly, if I'm gonna turn my situation around.
Later, his conscience awakens and he ends the encounters. The grandfather, father, and son of Sicilian descent plan to fulfill their old dream by coming to visit their ancestors' land and hope to perhaps find distant relatives. The grandfather is also a sex addict, but due to his age, this appears more as weird. He is an old fart. His role is to serve almost as a living warning, showing where it leads if nothing changes and they follow their instincts uncontrollably. The grandfather is frail, somewhat disgusting, and most importantly, alone. In the father's case, it is not yet decided whether he can overcome his sex addiction. Any addiction can only be pushed into the background if something more important to the addict can be found, something that can tip the scales to their own side. It seems the son is still before all of this. Lucia exploits him, even scams him. The question is whether this represents a gateway drug for the son. It is questionable how his difficult inheritance will manifest later. Following momentary desires makes it impossible to create the atmosphere of home, of a long-term relationship. The search for distant relatives also shows their desire to belong somewhere, their longing for home. It's no coincidence that the distant relatives are only elderly women without men. The women, probably due to their bad experiences, chase away the man longing for the warm welcome of home.
Not quite what I imagined.
The previous exploitations of instincts moved along a scale between unintentional innocence and transactionality. The peak of this is when Lucia scams the son for $50,000. However, this does not represent a significant amount for the family, who seem to view it as a tax levied on their instincts. However, for the heiress, who has drifted far from the reality of the world, this appears as a mortal danger. The heiress and Greg, who we met in the previous part, are now married, and the woman even helped Greg recover.
You found those doctors. I'm gonna live because of you.
But ever since you found out that you were gonna have a lot more years, I feel like you just realized that you were gonna be stuck living them with me.
However, they signed a prenuptial agreement, which makes Greg feel cornered.
I can't quit. I can't afford to quit. You made me sign a prenup. What if we don't work out? If we don't work out, what am I supposed to do without a job?
We're gonna work out, Greg.
How do I know? You change your mind about everything constantly.
But if the woman dies, then he would inherit everything. The heiress only realizes late that she is a mark. Yet every sign points to this, and even her strange visions do too.
I was seeing all these faces of men with these very effeminate hairstyles. And then I saw you, and your eyes were like shark eyes.
But this is hard to separate from her previous hysterics due to her sensitivity. A similar situation, but of lesser degree, is the relationship between the heiress's assistant and the nephew. She doesn't notice. His task is actually to separate her and remove her from the heiress's vicinity. Their relationship is really just a job. The woman may feel that she just dodged a bullet. The heiress's luck finally runs out. She can defend herself, but her inability to survive ultimately leads to an accident and her death. One of the two main focuses of the second season is, if we follow our own primal urges, we can become prey to hunting predators. We can see different degrees of this. In Valentina and the concierge's case, this happens unintentionally. In the case of the pianist and Mia, it is already intentional, but we might even find this justified, since originally the pianist wanted to exploit Mia, but this backfired, so we can also view the later events as Mia's revenge. In Valentina as Mia's case, the exploitation already becomes transactional. The professional level of this is Lucia, for whom the father, Cameron, and the son all become clients. In the case of the heiress's assistant, Portia, her exploitation already brings her close to a life-threatening situation, at least she felt that. Portia is swept away by the nephew's simple candidness. Later, she has to realize that it was an act and their relationship was just a job for the nephew. In the season, Greg is the apex predator. Initially, Greg perhaps only viewed the heiress as a casual relationship. However, after the woman helped him recover, he also wants to take her wealth. The woman believes she has finally found company that values her and doesn't notice that she is a mark. She can almost avoid the murder attempt. However, due to her comfortable life, she has become so detached from reality that she becomes the victim of a stupid accident. The heiress received many signs of the approaching danger. One of these is the prophecy of the strange tarot fortune teller, which doesn't seem favorable to her, so she doesn't even want to hear it. In the next part, as a brief detour before the season's other main theme, the tarot reading scene will be examined.